Hello, good morning, and welcome in to Raccoon City Real Talk. I'm going to get into some stories that I found interesting from today.
Good to have you. Well, we begin with some breaking news. The US President Donald Trump has just posted on Truth Social warning Iran. It read, Iran promised to open the Strait of Hormuz, and they knowingly failed to do so. This caused anxiety, dislocation, and pain to many people and countries throughout the world. They say they put mines in the water, even though all of their navy and most of their mine droppers have been completely blown up. They may have done so, but what ship owner would want to take the chance? There is great dishonor and permanent harm to the reputation of Iran and what's left of their leaders. But we are beyond all of that. As they promised, they better begin the process of getting this caps lock international waterway open and fast. Every law in the book is being violated by them. I have been fully debriefed.
It's always comical when Trump wants to cite how international laws are being violated when we can clearly see that they violate international law on a daily basis.
By Vice President J.D. Vance, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner on the meeting that took place in Islamabad through the kind and very competent leadership of Field Marshal Asim Munir and Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif of Pakistan. They are very extraordinary men and continuously thank me for saving 30 to 50 million lives in what would have been a horrendous war with India. I always appreciate hearing that. The amount of humanity spoken of is incomprehensible.
Jared Kushner goes to the World Economic Forum and presents a slideshow of what they plan on doing with Gaza. It's absolutely horrendous. And these are the people that Trump are taking advice from, the people that are leading the United States foreign policy. It's sickening. It's sickening when you look at it.
With Iran began early in the morning and lasted throughout the night, close to 20 hours. I could go into great detail and talk about much that has been gotten, but there is only one thing that matters. Iran is unwilling to give up its nuclear ambitions. In many ways, the points that were agreed to are...
And let's remember that they have been citing this nuclear threat since before 9/11.
better than us continuing our military operations to conclusion. But all of those points don't matter compared to allowing nuclear power to be in the hands of such volatile, difficult, unpredictable people. My three representatives, as all of this time went by, became, not surprisingly, very friendly and respectful of Iran's representatives. Mohammed Bagher Ghalibaf, Abbas Arab.
This is also contradicted by reports that you can go and find on Twitter, you can find YouTube videos. It's no surprise why we have so much hatred coming our way from other countries. What we're seeing right now is a deliberate effort to make the rest of the world hate the United States, and it's working.
And Ali Bagheri. But that doesn't matter because they were very unyielding as to the single most important issue. And as I have always said right from the beginning, and many years ago, Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. Donald J. Trump.
So as we have Trump making this statement, you have direct contradictions coming from the IRGC. Warships are approaching the Strait of Hormuz. We will deal with them harshly. If Americans start a ground war, we will deploy 1 million of our soldiers. And I've also seen reports that as of lately, the IRGC is reporting 20 million applications from citizens that are willing to give their life to defend Iran. So there's 20 million civilians joining the IRGC forces. None of what we are doing, none of what our leadership here, Trump, is doing is having the effect that he wanted it to have. It's having the exact opposite effect. It's actually strengthening Iran. In effect, it is strengthening Iran when 20 million civilians in Iran decide to join the military that we're claiming to free the people of. I mean, that's just where we're at. We're working in the opposite direction of our own interest. By the way, for years now, Iran has explicitly displayed and conveyed that they don't want a nuclear weapon. The Ayatollah, the supreme leader that Trump went and took out recently, was on record citing that nuclear weapons, just like all of us realize, there's no good that comes from nuclear weapons. But these people need nuclear programs in order to power a 90 million person population. Just like the United States has nuclear power plants everywhere, Iran deserves to have that too. This gives, because it's the most efficient way to power, and because they have embarked on using that technology to power their country, it gives the pretense to countries that don't like them or wish to impede on their territory. They've been telling us that they're seeking nuclear weapons for decades now, and it has drug our country economically into the dumpster.
And Islamabad, where we start with our White House correspondent, Kimberly Halkett. Kimberly, I was reading that for the first time. You may have been hearing that for the first time. We know that obviously Trump was dialed in multiple times during the talks in Islamabad, but what do you make of this very, very long Truth Social post?
Well, we go to what I think is the second part of Donald Trump's very lengthy and long tweet. They want money, and more importantly, they want nuclear. Additionally, and at an appropriate moment, this is key, we are fully locked and loaded, and our military will finish up the little that is left of Iran. These are the words I think are most consequential. His threat, and says he is now going to carry out and finish the job of Epic Fury, the joint operation between the United States and Israel on Iran that was started and only temporarily paused for the talks that occurred here and have resulted in no deal in Islamabad.
It's very convenient that this conflict kicked off at a time where Epstein files were trending. If their intent was to distract from the Epstein files, it was successful on their part.
Kimberly, just give us a sense of the sentiment there in the wake of these high-level talks in Islamabad. Is there any perception whatsoever that there are avenues for further discussion, or is, at least when it comes to negotiations as they stand right now, have the shutters come down?
She's going to go into the negotiations that have, for the very first time, taken place between the U.S. and Iran. And I can appreciate that as something that's important. Who knows? Maybe behind the scenes, obviously we know that these negotiations have been sabotaged many times in the past. So they would want to, if they were intent on actual productive negotiations, it would have to be done on the down low, right? Otherwise, the negotiations could be sabotaged. I just seen reports coming out of Iran that their defense program will not run out of missiles for 10 years. This was a statement by the IRGC. If that's the case, I mean, just imagine where our country would be if we actually proceeded and stayed involved in this conflict for 10 years. We're already seeing the cost of living skyrocket here in the United States. This is only going to rapidly increase that trend with our currency. But let's take a look at, we're going to go ahead and take a quick look at what she's referring to from a slightly different perspective, which all of these are linked in the description if you want to watch the full thing.
American soil. He was returning from a marathon, historic negotiation, but one that had not delivered a deal.
We've made very clear what our red lines are, what things we're willing to accommodate them on, and what things we're not willing to accommodate them on. And we've made that as clear as we possibly could, and they have chosen not to accept our terms.
After the talks, Iran said they'd not expected an agreement in a single session, but implied.
By the way, they won't let us in on the terms that we presented to them. That should tell you something right there. There were probably unreasonable terms. If you're going to tell Iran you can have zero enrichment, that means that they are not allowed to use nuclear power plants to supply energy to their people of 90 plus million. What are they supposed to do for energy? Run it on generators?
That one may be possible. The question now, what would President Trump do next? We did not have to wait long for an answer. Writing on social media, he said he would begin the process of blockading any and all ships trying to enter or leave the Strait of Hormuz. He also claimed that other countries will be involved with this blockade. In the last half hour, the US military said it will begin tomorrow. It's a response to Iran effectively blockading the strait to the vast majority of ships. That's had a huge impact on the global economy, one that grows by the day. Ending this was a key objective.
Yeah, certain places in Europe are suffering like you wouldn't believe. The effects of this economic crisis, which we don't appreciate it quite like we should because it hasn't impacted us as much. This is also a tactic by our government to make sure that we don't get too involved, because if gas prices, let's say gas prices just jump to $10 a gallon overnight, right? You're going to have people that can't get to work. You're going to have people that decide, like, I'm going to go ahead and get involved in this situation, right? The best way for them to continue their plans is to keep people content. So if they slow roll the increase on our cost of living and just incrementally allow it to affect us in a slower manner than what some of these other countries are seeing, like in Europe, some of these countries have literally, they can't go to the gas station and get gas. I mean, imagine if it was like that here. Imagine if half the states in the country, or all the states in our country, if you had lines lined up out to the street at the gas pump and people were not able to even fuel their vehicles, and you had vehicles that were abandoned along the side of the road because they ran out of gas and they can't find gas. That would cause so many more people to wake up instantly. When I say instantly, I mean like there's people waking up, but it's at a slow enough rate that the power players are not at risk. There's no threat to them. But if you have millions of people overnight forced to wake up, this would cause a serious issue for them.
Tip of the talks in Pakistan. With that unsuccessful, this appears to be the president's new tactic.
It seems to be probably at least part of a negotiating strategy to ratchet up tension on Iran, and also to hit them economically in terms of less revenues for Iran. Obviously, that's key for him. And as well as potentially put pressure on Iran's partners, such as China.
But speaking on US TV a few hours later, President Trump made clear it was not the only escalation available.
The only thing left, really, is their water, which would be very devastating to hit. I would hate to do it. But it's their water, their desalinization plants.
I mean, just take that in for a second. Why would you even mention hitting their water if the claims are no nuclear weapons and freeing the Iranian people? There is no reason to mention hitting plants that supply water to innocent civilians that live in Iran. And you'll see some people here in a minute from Iran so that you could get a little bit of an idea of what it's like walking around on the streets of Iran. It's not this crazy place like you would think but it's not what we're used to seeing.
Their electric generating plants, which are very easy to hit. We could hit them. We could have them all down.
In Tehran, after nearly 40 days of constant airstrikes, to have pictures of negotiations on the front pages will come as some relief, even if they were not the headlines these people wanted.
I was really hoping they would make an agreement and reach a conclusion. It's been almost 45 days now, and I can see the stress in people. This is not what our country deserves.
I would have preferred that there was no war and peace and tranquility instead. But I think there's no other way than war and confrontation.
For now, while neither side seems willing to back down, neither seems to be rushing for a return to war.
You know, let's consider what that man said right there. Now, if we had a country telling us you can't have efficient manners of supplying energy to your country, claimed that you're going to develop nuclear bombs and have claimed that you're going to develop nuclear bombs for 30 years. And then if you're given these statements by Trump, right? If for these people, they've seen these statements from Trump that we're going to blow you to hell, we're going to erase entire civilizations, and yet this man still, the first thing he said was, we don't want war. We would prefer no war and peace, right? But we have, it doesn't look like there's any other option besides war. That to me tells me that he's just willing to accept that, hey, we're either going to all be erased, like he's saying, or we're going to have to stand and fight for our country. That is not unreasonable. And these people are not running around talking about, oh, you know, let's kill all the Americans and, you know, death to America. That is not what you see in these countries. That is only what you see if your reality is shaped by outlets like CNN and MSNBC or Fox News. Just before we move on from the Iran conflict and the negotiations, I would like to share with you a compilation of our government and where their allegiance lies as far as who is largely funding these politicians. This is where our government is coming from. Take a look at this. All the red have a foreign lobby. Okay, so for our next story, we're going to take a look at this California race where Eric Swalwell was going up against, just for some context, Eric Swalwell was going up against Gavin Newsom. He was also starting to edge ahead slightly in the numbers that were being reported. Now, I'm not coming out in defense of Eric Swalwell in any way, but if you do an inquiry on the allegations against Eric Swalwell, because I tried to do some research into it before I covered it in any way, just to get an idea of what was going on. This is what you get if you try to inquiry it with Gemini. I'm just going to, full disclosure, I'm using Gemini to look into this, but this is what you get if you look into it. As of right now, there are no official court filings available for the public to read. The situation is currently in the investigation. Because the allegations only broke within the last few days, the process is currently divided into 3 areas that have not yet produced a public court docket. You know, which I guess that's understanding. It's understandable, but we have multiple government officials in Congress coming out, Anna Paulina Luna, Ro Khanna, all these people that are also on the same front in their efforts, which I would say can easily be a fake effort, because we haven't really gotten anything substantial when it comes to the Epstein files, because we're not seeing anybody held accountable. We have these Congress members come out and they're making statements, which are pretty crazy, but there's no accountability whatsoever. So everything that they have done up to this point really has been fruitless. But they're the same people coming out against this Eric Swalwell. And I have seen some videos of Swalwell doing some things that are distasteful and that you wouldn't want to see your representatives doing. But keep in mind that 99% of Congress are compromised. And if we had the goods on 99% of Congress, there would be things that would have the public in outrage, complete outrage. These people are as evil as you could possibly imagine, and then more. But I find it interesting that if you do an inquiry, there's literally nothing. You can't get anything to try to look into these allegations. It's an unnamed person. It's one of those situations that are very common now whenever there's an enemy to the establishment. And like I said, no support of Swalwell. I don't have enough information to be in support or against, other than some videos that have been posted about him and largely spread on the media.
Tonight, East Bay Congressman Eric Swalwell suspends his campaign for governor amid allegations of sexual assault and now even more pressure on the politician to step down. Breaking news in the world of politics. East Bay Congressman Eric Swalwell announcing just a few minutes ago that he is suspending his campaign for California governor. Swalwell sharing this message out there on social media. It does read, "To my family, staff, and friends and supporters, I am deeply sorry for mistakes and judgment I've made in my past. I will fight the serious, false allegations that have been made, but that's my fight, not a campaign's." Swalwell's announcement comes after 2 Bay Area representatives, Sam Liccardo and Jared Huffman, said yesterday Swalwell should step down. And today, Democratic Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal from the Seattle area said she supports efforts to expel Swalwell from the House of Representatives. The New York Times is reporting the Manhattan District Attorney will investigate the incident involving a former staffer of Swalwell. She says the congressman assaulted her twice, including an incident at a New York hotel room in 2024. Swalwell denies the accusation. His campaign for governor had recently lost some support from key Democrats, including Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi and Senators Adam Schiff and Alex Padilla. Also today, more than 50 former Swalwell staffers signed a letter urging the congressman to resign from office and pull out of the governor's race. In that letter, the staffers praised the alleged victim and wrote, quote, "We are appalled by his actions and stand firmly with you and every victim who has come forward."
Yeah, like they're standing firmly with the Epstein victims. There's no support on behalf of Swalwell here, but the hypocrisy has to be called out. They're going to go after this guy, which the reasons are probably not clear, at least not clearly relayed to us. But remember this, 90%, 90+% of our Congress, of our government is lobbied and controlled. I'll keep an eye on this story, not because I like Swalwell. I don't even know him. I do know that he was running against Gavin Newsom, and I know for certain that I don't like Gavin Newsom. You know, you still have to keep hope, and I do reserve hope that maybe we can come out of this in a peaceful way, which elections would be one way to do that. It would be the preferable way to do that. But in my opinion, the elections have been stolen and rigged, and they're completely controlled. They use machines to conduct these elections. So we just have to believe and trust that they're honorable and honest with what the results are in these elections. I won't, not until I see something different. If they did all paper ballots, you still have to have, the machines have to be removed from the elections. If they're going to use machines in the elections, there's going to be that potential that they're lying to us about the results. And they're going to, if they are lying to us about the results, they're going to achieve the goals that they want. Okay, so this next story that we are going to take a look at here, that's big news right now, is over in Hungary with Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orbán concedes defeat after what he calls painful election results. See if we can get this full screen before we go on.
Corruption, but it all has to be seen because Magyar, from the other hand, is coming from the Fidesz party from Orban. He was a loyalist for many, many years. So he has a lot of the same ideals and values as Viktor Orbán. The only things that are really different is his relationship he wants with the European Union. So people here have voted for Péter Magyar because he was uniting the opposition in the last 2 years. People have reluctantly voted for him as well. But they had only one goal, and that was to get rid of Viktor Orbán.
They often frame these situations as well as a like a great win for the people. I don't know anything about this incoming prime minister over in Hungary. In fact, I don't really follow Hungary whatsoever, but this was a story that's taking place right now, so I thought we'd take a look at it. But they frame these elections and these results that are out of the ordinary, and we're going to take a look at a more mainstream coverage after this one. This one is a less mainstream. Al Jazeera, I like them a lot. I think that they report more honestly. I'm not saying that you're going to get honest reporting out of any big media outlet, but I do like Al Jazeera, but they frame these things as like a win for the people, and the ending results always end up being a win for the powerful and the elite. So I'm very skeptical of this new prime minister. I don't know what it's going to end up like, but hopefully it's a good thing. There we go.
He has conceded, and he has conceded very early on, you would say, but he was speaking, and he said that he accepts the result. He congratulates Péter Magyar. He said he will go and support the opposition. It's not clear, of course, if he will have a role in the opposition himself, but he says, we are not done, the fight is not over. So it shows basically that he is willing to accept the result, and all the talk that there was happening in the last couple of days, that there could be protests, that there could be resistance from whoever's gonna lose, that there could be violence even. It seems now all gone, with Viktor Orbán coming out and very clearly saying, we lost.
A Sky News report here. Just to be fair and give all sides.
Hours ago, but already we have a result. A historic result. Viktor Orbán, as you say, conceding defeat, marking the end of his 16-year rule here in Hungary. There was a concern that he wouldn't go quietly, having built a system that made it very hard to defeat his Fidesz ruling party. But I think the scale of the defeat here, the projected scale of the defeat, left him with no option but to accept the result. He conceded defeat with just over half of the vote counted, which even at that stage, the opposition TISA party was projected to win a supermajority, more than 135 seats. In that building there behind me, Hungary's stunning parliament building. So a really, really comprehensive defeat for his Fidesz party after 16 years, as I say. He said he's congratulated the winning party. He says the election result is clear. He said it is painful for us and we will serve our nation from the opposition. I am at a watch party, kind of street party organised by the opposition here on the banks of the Danube. The results are being played out on a big screen just out of your shot over my shoulder there. And whenever a new result comes in favour of the opposition, a huge cheer goes up. There's a real party atmosphere here.
Was about another country, wasn't it? About Ukraine and Zelensky.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Walking around Budapest this week and looking at the campaign posters, you'd think that Volodymyr Zelensky was running for office here, because his face has been everywhere here. It's dominated the campaign posters of Viktor Orbán's party. He's campaigned on a platform of fear. He is anti-Ukraine, pro-Russia, and his posters warn that a vote for the opposition would be dragging Hungary into war against Russia. He casts his rival Péter Magyar as an agent of Ukraine, as an agent of Brussels warmongers, supposedly. He says this is a choice between war and peace, that he was the only one to keep Hungarians safe, the saviour or the guardian of its security, but people clearly don't believe that kind of campaign.
Well, there you have it. We're learning together. So in other words, this incumbent into Hungary, his opposition was Zelensky in Ukraine. So, good for the people of Hungary. It sounds like it's a good thing for them, in my opinion. I am not for Zelensky. I'm not, I don't have any type of 100% allegiance to either side. But from what I've seen and the effects that the Ukraine and Russia conflict have had on our country and the amount of people that have lost their life in that conflict, it's very much like the same situations we're seeing over in the Middle East. So it's just, you got to see it for what it is. Anyway, that is going to do it for Raccoon City Real Talk on April 13th, 2026. Thank you to all of you who dropped in.